After the release of the limited edition ATH-AWKT, which we looked at in 2019, we were wondering if the folks at Audio-Technica were going to release more closed-back flagships for home use. Well, the answer is yes, and two of them. Meet the ATH-AWAS and AWKT, which you can tell apart from each other thanks to their beautiful wooden housings. The AWAS is housed in Asada Sakura Japanese cherry wood, whereas the AWKT makes an impression with its striped kokutan ebony wood cups. Another subtle difference between the two headphones is that the AWAS seems to use a smoother pleather material for the headband and ear pads, whereas the AWKT appears to feature a material with a surface grain that looks and feels closer to animal leather. For longtime followers of Audio-Technica, you will also notice that the company has adopted the split headband design from the ADX5000. Now that's probably a good thing because not everyone was a big fan of the old 3D wing system. However, the split headband doesn't work quite as well on these new headphones because the AWAS and AWKT are both noticeably heavier than the open frame ADX5000. Both models weigh about 400 grams compared to the ADX5000's featherweight 270 grams. I would have preferred a little more padding on the headband because of this increased weight. Still, comfort on the AWAS and AWKT is good, just not as comfortable as Audio-Technica's own AP2000 Ti or WP900 or competitors like the Sony MDR-Z1R. Both models ship with unbalanced quarter-inch and balanced XLR cables included. Audio-Technica is not including a 4.4mm balance cable with these headphones, which seems to be their way of telling you to use these headphones at home with a desktop amplifier. Still, it's easy enough to switch to 4.4mm, and both headphones are easy enough to drive that most portable sources will deliver plenty of power headroom with a balanced output. So moving on to the sound of the AWAS and AWKT, to no one's great surprise, both headphones deliver AT's magic vocal signature in the form of a drier, slightly emphasized upper mid-range. However, the AWAS and AWKT also sound significantly different from each other, and I really don't think it's obvious which one is the better headphone despite the difference in price. The AWAS is the warmer of the two headphones, with a richer sound in the mid-bass and a slightly more rolled-off sound in the high frequencies. It's a really smooth, relaxed sound, thicker than the AWKT, but not really that thick compared to other closed-back models like the Fostex TH900, Focal Stellia, or the Sony Z1R. Compared to those models, there is still less mid-bass and vocals are still brighter on the AWAS. Within Audio-Technica's own closed-back range, the AWAS is more mellow. It does not have a V-shaped emphasis on bass and treble like the WP900, and instead sounds more like a laid-back version of the AP2000 Ti with smoother high frequencies. For me, if the AWAS had just a little more bass, I would find it a perfect sound, but there are definitely people out there who are looking for a flatter response like this from a closed-back headphone. Now, the AWKT is quite different, and while we don't have the L5000 anymore to directly compare with the AWKT, I am pretty confident that everything I said about the L5000 can be applied to the AWKT. The AWKT captures AT's traditional house sound with an extremely forward upper mid-range that verges on being honky. Now, it's not exactly a harsh sound, but it is uniquely thin. The tuning of the AWKT makes string instruments and acoustic instruments stand out, and while this is a very strange thing to say, the AWKT's emphasis on upper mid-range harmonics is pronounced enough that it actually makes most female vocalists sound younger. Conversely, male vocalists on this headphone tend to sound less rich and engaging. It's definitely a specialized sound that tends to work very well for some genres but not for others, but the sense of detail in acoustic, classical, and jazz tracks is really something special. So while the AWAS is a safer listen, the AWKT delivers something more exotic. Now, a real point of praise I have for both of these headphones is that note timbre and soundstage are really, really spot on, and probably the best I've heard in any closed-back headphone. Acoustic instruments sound beautifully natural, and I think ear cup resonance is better controlled on these headphones compared to other wooden models like the Fostex TH900. The soundstage of both the AWAS and AWKT are also both quite open for closed headphones. This may be thanks to the extreme angle of the drivers in the baffle, the same design we saw in the WP900. Now, neither headphone sounds quite as wide and diffuse as the Sony Z1R, but to me the sound is actually more defined without a lot of internal reflection from the ear cups. So where does this leave us? Well, I think all these new closed-back models from Audio-Technica represent the way Audio-Technica is carefully experimenting with their signature sound. The WP900 is the fun, aggressive, and brash newcomer that sounds addictively fun with newer genres of music. The AWAS is the more mature model, with a middle-of-the-road sound that carries some of the best aspects of the old and the new. And the AWKT is definitely the elder statesman of the family that carries the heritage of the company in an updated physical design. If you have the chance, pop in, have a listen, and let us know what you think. This is Lachlan for Minidisc TV, and we'll see you next time.